The small apartment felt emptier than usual that evening. Lisa sat on her couch holding a cup of tea that had gone cold an hour ago. On her finger was an engagement ring that sparkled under the lamplight. 3 years. It had been 3 whole years since her fiancé left for what he called the opportunity of a lifetime. She remembered that day so clearly. He had packed his bags with such excitement, talking about the business deal overseas that would change their lives. Just 6 months, he had promised, kissing her forehead. Maybe 8 at most. Then we'll get married and start our life together. But 6 months became a year, then 2 years, now 3. Lisa worked at the town library, a job she loved. Books had always been her escape, her comfort. Every morning she would walk through those heavy wooden doors and lose herself in the smell of old pages and the quiet whispers of people discovering new stories. But lately she realized something painful. She was so busy reading about other people's adventures that her own life had completely stopped moving. Her apartment told the whole story. She had decorated it carefully, picking out curtains she thought they would both like. The kitchen had 2 sets of everything waiting for him to come home. She bought his favorite coffee even though she didn't drink it. The closet had space cleared for his clothes. Everything was ready. Everything except him. Her phone buzzed occasionally with his messages. They used to come every day, then every week, then every month. Now they were random, sometimes cheerful, sometimes distant, always with the same promise. Soon I'll be back soon. Her best friend Rita had stopped being gentle about it months ago. 3 years, Lisa. 3 years of your life on hold. You're 32. When are you going to wake up? Rita would say this while shaking her head, frustration and love mixed in her voice. Other friends were kinder but said the same thing in softer ways. Maybe it's time to think about yourself, they would suggest over coffee. You deserve someone who's actually here. But Lisa couldn't let go. Was it love? Was it stubbornness? Was it fear of admitting she had wasted 3 years? She didn't know anymore. All she knew was that she had made a promise and she didn't break promises. Every evening followed the same pattern. She would come home from the library, heat up dinner for one and sit in that apartment full of waiting. She would look at wedding magazines she had bought years ago, now gathering dust. She would scroll through their old photos trying to remember what his laugh sounded like in person, instead of through a phone screen. The hardest part wasn't the waiting itself. It was watching life happen around her while she stood still. Rita had gotten married last year. Her colleague at the library just had her 2nd baby. Her younger cousin was engaged. Everyone was moving forward and she was stuck in the same spot, like a character in a book whose story had stopped mid-sentence. Sometimes late at night, she would talk to herself.
What are you doing?
She would whisper. Why are you still wearing that ring? But by morning, the doubt would fade, replaced by the old hope. Maybe today would be the day he would call and say he was coming home. The savings account they had opened together for their wedding still sat untouched. She had added to it faithfully every month, watching the number grow for a celebration that never came. Sometimes she wondered if she was saving money or just collecting evidence of her own denial. Her mother called every Sunday. Any news? She would ask gently, though they both knew the answer. Her father had stopped asking, which somehow hurt more. It meant even he had given up hope. Lisa had become an expert at defending her choices. When people asked about her love life, she had practiced responses ready. He's working abroad. Yes, we're still together. No, we haven't set a date yet. She said these words so often they stopped feeling like lies and started feeling like a script she had memorized. But inside, in the quiet moments she didn't share with anyone, doubt was growing like a shadow. What if Rita was right? What if she was wasting the best years of her life? What if he never came back? What if he did come back but they were strangers by then? She looked around her apartment that night. Every corner was a memory of waiting. The calendar on the wall where she used to mark the days until his return, now just showing regular dates with no special meaning. The cookbook she bought to learn his favorite meals barely used. The photo frame on the shelf, his picture smiling back at her from another country, another life. 3 years of her life, preserved like a museum. Nothing had changed. Nothing had moved. Even the furniture was in the same position as the day he left. She realized with a painful clarity that she hadn't just been waiting for him. She had stopped living entirely. That night she made a small decision. She moved the couch to a different wall. It was just furniture, just a simple change. But as she pushed it across the room, breathing heavily from the effort, she felt something shift inside her too. Maybe, just maybe, it was time to stop waiting for life to happen and start living it. She didn't take off the ring that night. She wasn't ready for that, but she did open a window, letting fresh air into the apartment that had felt sealed off from the world for too long. Outside, she could hear people laughing, cars passing, life happening. Tomorrow, she would go back to the library, back to her routine. But something had changed, even if she couldn't name it yet. A tiny crack had appeared in the wall she had built around herself. And through that crack, whether she was ready or not, the real world was beginning to seep back in. She finished her cold tea, washed the cup, and went to bed. The ring caught the moonlight from the window, casting small rainbows on the wall. Pretty, but just light and glass. Not worth stopping a whole life for. As she drifted off to sleep, she didn't know that her life was about to change in ways she never expected. That the next chapter of her story was about to begin, not with the person she was waiting for, but with people she hadn't even met yet. Sometimes the universe has a funny way of working. We wait and wait for one door to open, not realizing that another door has been unlocked all along. We just need to turn around and see it. The Tuesday started like any other. Lisa arranged the new arrivals on the display shelf, humming quietly to herself. The library was peaceful in the morning, with only a few regulars reading newspapers in the corner. Rain had started falling outside, tapping gently against the tall windows. Around 2 in the afternoon, the main doors burst open with a loud bang. A tall man rushed in, his jacket soaked from the rain, carrying a small boy who was crying loudly. Several people looked up from their books, annoyed at the noise. "I'm so sorry," the man said breathlessly, looking around desperately. "Is there a first aid kit?" "He fell at the playground." Lisa immediately stood up from her desk. Something about the panic in the man's voice and the little boy's tears pushed her into action. "Come here quickly," she said, leading them to a small room behind the main desk. The boy was about 6 years old, with messy brown hair and tears streaming down his cheeks. His knee was scraped and bleeding, dirt mixed with the blood. He was crying not just from pain, but from fear, the way children do when they're hurt and scared. "Hey there," Lisa said softly, kneeling down to the boy's level. "That looks like it hurts. But you know what? I have magic band-aids that make everything better." The boy stopped crying for a moment, curious. "Magic?" He sniffled. "Super magic," Lisa said with a serious face, pulling out the first aid kit. "But first we need to clean it. It might sting a tiny bit, but can you be brave for me?" The boy nodded, wiping his nose with his sleeve. His father watched, looking relieved and exhausted at the same time. As Lisa gently cleaned the wound, she started talking in a funny voice, pretending to be a doctor from a cartoon. Oh my, what do we have here? A wounded soldier? A brave knight who fought a dragon?" The boy giggled through his tears. "I'm not a knight. I'm just Tommy." "Just Tommy?" No. I think you're Super Tommy who fought with the evil playground monster." Lisa continued, carefully applying antiseptic. The boy was so distracted by her silly voices that he barely noticed the sting. His father spoke up, his voice warm with gratitude. "Thank you so much. I'm James, by the way. We were at the playground across the street when he tripped. I panicked and just ran to the nearest door. I'm Lisa, and this is Tommy, the bravest boy I've met today," she said, placing a colorful band-aid decorated with dinosaurs on his knee. "There, all fixed." Tommy looked at his knee, then at Lisa, then smiled a big smile that showed a missing front tooth. "Thank you, Miss Lisa, I like dinosaurs." "Me too," Lisa said, standing up. "Do you want to see a book about dinosaurs while your knee feels better?" Tommy's eyes lit up and he nodded enthusiastically. James looked at her with such appreciation that Lisa felt a little embarrassed. She led them to the children's section and pulled out a large picture book about dinosaurs. Tommy forgot all about his knee as he flipped through the pages, pointing at different creatures and making roaring sounds. James sat down next to his son, and Lisa found herself sitting with them, showing Tommy her favorite parts of the book. She learned that James was an architect who had just moved to town 6 months ago. He and Tommy lived in an apartment not far from the library. "Single dad life is harder than I thought," James admitted quietly while Tommy was absorbed in the pictures. "I run my own firm and trying to balance work with parenting. Some days I feel like I'm failing at both." There was a sadness in his voice that Lisa recognized. Not fresh pain, but the kind that had settled in and become part of someone's daily life. You rushed him here in the rain, knew exactly what he needed, and now he's smiling again. Doesn't look like failing to me, Lisa said gently. James smiled, a real smile that reached his eyes. Thank you for that. And for the magic Band-Aids. Tommy looked up at that moment. Daddy, can we come back here? I want to read more dinosaur books with Miss Lisa. We have story time every Thursday afternoon, Lisa found herself saying. Lots of books about dinosaurs and other things. You're welcome anytime. Can we, Daddy, please? Tommy tugged at his father's sleeve. We'll see, buddy, James said. But he was looking at Lisa with a warmth that suggested they would definitely be back. As they left, Tommy turned back at the door and waved enthusiastically. Bye, Miss Lisa. Thank you for fixing my knee. Lisa waved back, watching them disappear into the rain. The library felt quieter after they left, emptier somehow. She went back to her desk, but her mind kept returning to the little boy's gap-toothed smile and his father's grateful eyes. For the rest of the day, she found herself thinking about them. How James had looked so overwhelmed yet so devoted. How Tommy had trusted her immediately, letting her clean his wound because she made him laugh. It had been a long time since she felt useful like that, needed in such a simple and genuine way. That evening, as she walked home, Lisa realized something strange. For the first time in months, maybe years, she had gone several hours without checking her phone for messages. She had been completely present in the moment, focused on helping a little boy and his worried father. The rain had stopped, and the streets smelled fresh and clean. Lisa found herself smiling as she walked, remembering Tommy's dinosaur roars and the way his whole face had lit up when he looked at those pictures. When she got home, her apartment looked the same as always. But somehow she felt different, like a window had opened, letting in air she didn't know she needed. Her phone showed no new messages. The man she was waiting for hadn't called, but for the first time she didn't feel that familiar ache. Instead, she thought about Thursday's story time and wondered if a certain little boy would show up with his father. She made dinner, ate while reading a book, and went to bed feeling lighter than she had in years. Sometimes life changes in big dramatic moments, but sometimes it changes in small ways. A scraped knee, a dinosaur book, a little boy's smile, a father's grateful eyes. Lisa didn't know it yet, but that rainy Tuesday afternoon had started something. The universe had pushed open that door she hadn't noticed, and two people had walked through it, bringing with them the possibility of something new. Something she wasn't looking for, wasn't waiting for, but maybe, just maybe, exactly what she needed. Thursday came, and Lisa found herself looking at the door more often than usual during story time. She had arranged the children's area with extra cushions and picked out 3 books about dinosaurs just in case. She told herself she wasn't waiting for anyone specific, but her heart jumped a little every time the door opened. At 3:30, just when she was starting to feel foolish, Tommy burst through the door, dragging his father behind him. Miss Lisa, we came. I told Daddy we had to come. Lisa's face broke into a genuine smile. Tommy, I'm so glad you're here. How's your knee? Tommy pulled up his pant leg to show her. The scrape was healing nicely. The magic Band-Aid worked, see? James walked up, looking a bit sheepish. He talked about nothing else for 2 days. I think you made a permanent fan. Well, I have more dinosaur books today, Lisa said, and Tommy cheered loudly, making the other children giggle. That story time was special. Tommy sat right in front, answering every question Lisa asked, making sound effects for every animal in the stories. His enthusiasm was contagious, and even the shy children started participating more. James sat in the back, watching his son with such love and pride that Lisa felt her chest tighten. After story time, Tommy didn't want to leave. He wanted to see every dinosaur book in the library. James apologized repeatedly, but Lisa didn't mind. She found herself enjoying Tommy's endless questions and his father's patient, thoughtful answers. Why did dinosaurs die, Daddy? Scientists think a big rock from space hit the Earth, buddy. A big rock? Like the one in our garden? Much, much bigger. As big as a mountain. Wow, that's really big. Lisa watched them, this little team, and felt something warm spreading in her chest. A feeling she couldn't quite name but didn't want to push away. As weeks passed, Lisa started seeing them everywhere. At the grocery store on Saturday morning, where Tommy waved at her from the cereal aisle. At the park near her apartment, where James pushed Tommy on the swings. Each time felt like a small gift, a happy surprise in her routine life. The meetings became regular. Every Thursday story time without fail. Tommy would rush in, excited to see Lisa, and James would follow with that same gentle smile. They started arriving early and leaving late, with Tommy showing Lisa his drawings or telling her about his day at school. One evening, Lisa was having coffee at a small cafe near the library when James and Tommy walked in. Tommy spotted her immediately and dragged his father to her table. "Miss Lisa, are you having hot chocolate? I love hot chocolate." "Just coffee for me," Lisa laughed. "But hot chocolate sounds good. Would you like to join us?" James asked, and there was something hopeful in his voice. "I mean, if you're not busy, Tommy would love it." Lisa hesitated for only a second before nodding. "I'd like that." They sat together, and for the first time they talked about more than just books and dinosaurs. James told her about his architecture firm, how he designed houses for families and tried to create spaces where people could be happy. His eyes lit up when he talked about his work, drawing sketches on napkins to explain his ideas. "My wife used to say I fell in love with buildings because they stay standing even when life falls apart," he said quietly. And there it was, the first time he mentioned her. Tommy was busy with his coloring book, not paying attention. Lisa found her voice gentle when she asked, "Your wife?" James nodded, looking down at his coffee. "She passed away 2 years ago. Car accident. It was sudden. One day we were a complete family, the next—" He trailed off, then looked at Tommy with such tenderness. "He's been my reason to keep going. Some days he's the only reason I get out of bed." Lisa felt tears prick her eyes. "He's lucky to have you. Not every father would manage so well alone." "I don't know about managing well," James said with a sad smile. "Most days I feel like I'm barely holding it together. Burning dinner, forgetting school events, showing up to meetings with spit up on my shirt from when he was younger." He paused. "Meeting you it's been really nice. Tommy talks about you all the time. You've brought joy back into his life in a way I couldn't." Before Lisa could respond, Tommy looked up. "Miss Lisa, do you have a family? Do you have kids?" The question caught her off guard. "No, sweetheart. I live alone. Don't you get lonely?" Tommy asked with the innocent directness only children have. Lisa glanced down at her hand, at the ring she still wore. "Sometimes," she admitted. James noticed her looking at the ring but didn't ask about it. Instead, he changed the subject, asking about her favorite books, her life at the library. The conversation flowed easily, naturally, and Lisa realized she was laughing more than she had in years. They started meeting more regularly after that. James would text her, asking if she wanted to join them for weekend activities. The zoo, where Tommy insisted on seeing every single animal. The children's museum, where he built towers and James helped him with complicated exhibits. The ice cream shop where Tommy always ordered chocolate and got it all over his face. Lisa became part of their little routine. She didn't plan it, didn't think about it too much. It just happened as naturally as breathing. Tommy started calling her his friend Miss Lisa, and James started sharing more about his life, his struggles, his hopes. One Saturday at the park, while Tommy played on the jungle gym, James sat next to Lisa on a bench. "I want to say something," he began, looking nervous. "And please tell me if I'm overstepping. But I've noticed you still wear that ring and you sometimes check your phone with this look of hope and sadness mixed together." He paused. "You don't have to tell me anything. I just want you to know that whoever he is, if he's not here, he's missing out on someone really special." Lisa felt her eyes water. No one had said anything like that to her in years. Everyone had judged her or pitied her, but no one had simply told her she was worth more than waiting. "It's complicated," she whispered. "Life usually is," James said gently. "But from what I've learned, especially after losing my wife, is that the present is all we really have. The past is gone, the future is uncertain. This moment right now is all that's real." They sat in comfortable silence watching Tommy play. Lisa thought about James's words, about the present moment. Right now she was sitting in the sun, watching a happy child play next to a kind man who saw her as a person, not just a woman waiting. Maybe, just maybe, James was right. Maybe she had been so focused on a future that might never come that she had forgotten to live in the now, and the now, she realized with a start, had become pretty beautiful without her even noticing. Tommy ran up to them, out of breath and grinning. "Daddy, Miss Lisa, come play with me, please." They both stood up and Tommy grabbed both their hands, pulling them toward the playground. Lisa looked down at her hand in Tommy's small grip, then at James on the other side, and felt something shift in her heart. A door opening wider, light flooding in where there had been shadow. She didn't know what was happening, didn't want to name it or examine it too closely. But for the first time in 3 years, she felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. November arrived with cold winds and darker evenings. Lisa had just gotten home from a wonderful day with James and Tommy at the autumn festival. Her cheeks were still red from the cold, and she was smiling as she unlocked her apartment door, carrying a small pumpkin Tommy had insisted she take home. She set the pumpkin on her kitchen counter and was making tea when her phone rang. Not a regular call, but a video call. From him. After months of short text messages, he was actually calling. Her hand shook as she answered. His face appeared on the screen and Lisa felt a strange disconnect. This was the man she had been waiting for. The man whose picture sat on her shelf, but looking at him now he felt like a stranger. "Hey," he said, and even his voice sounded different, more distant. "I know it's been a while." 3 years, Lisa said quietly. "It's been 3 years." He looked uncomfortable, shifting in his seat. Behind him, Lisa could see an apartment she didn't recognize, furniture she had never seen, a whole life she wasn't part of. "Look, I need to be honest with you," he began, and Lisa felt her stomach drop. She knew that tone. She had heard it in movies, read it in books. Nothing good ever followed those words. "I met someone here," he said, not meeting her eyes through the screen. "I didn't mean for it to happen. It just did. And I've been trying to figure out how to tell you. And I know I'm a coward for waiting this long." Lisa stood frozen, holding her phone. 3 years. 3 years of waiting, defending him to everyone, keeping her life on hold. And this was how it ended. A video call where he couldn't even look at her properly. "You met someone," she repeated, her voice sounding hollow even to herself. "I'm sorry. I really am. But I've built a life here and she's part of it now. I should have told you sooner. I should have been honest months ago. Years ago, maybe." He finally looked at the camera. "You deserve better than this. Better than me. You should move on, find someone who's actually there for you. Move on." As if 3 years could be erased with 2 words. As if all the waiting, all the hope, all the nights spent alone could just disappear because he had decided he was done. "Is that it?" Lisa asked, surprised by the steadiness in her voice. 3 years, and that's all you have to say? He looked relieved that she wasn't crying or screaming. "I'll transfer my half of the savings account to you. Consider it my apology. I know it doesn't fix anything, but it's something. Money." He thought money would fix this. Fix the years she had given him, the life she had put on pause, the person she had stopped being while she waited for him to come back. "I don't want your money," Lisa said quietly. "I want those 3 years back." "But I can't have them, can I?" He looked down again, ashamed. "I'm sorry. I really am. Are you?" Lisa felt anger rising now, hot and sharp. "Because you don't sound sorry. You sound relieved. Like you've been waiting for the right moment to tell me and now you finally did and now you can move on with your new life without feeling guilty." "That's not fair," he protested weakly. "Fair?" Lisa laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "You want to talk about fair? I waited for you. For 3 years I defended you when everyone told me to move on. I kept this apartment ready for you. I saved money for a wedding that was never going to happen. I put my entire life on hold because I believed in your promises. I know, and I'm sorry. Yes, you said that." Lisa felt tears starting, but she blinked them back. She wouldn't cry for him. Not anymore. "Goodbye." She ended the call before he could say anything else. The phone slipped from her hands onto the couch, and Lisa stood in her apartment in the silence that followed, feeling like the floor had disappeared beneath her feet. 3 years. Gone. Just like that. She looked around her apartment, really looked at it. The curtains she had chosen thinking of his taste. The coffee in her kitchen she never drank. The empty space in the closet. The wedding magazines gathering dust. All of it, every single thing had been for someone who was never coming back. Who maybe never intended to come back. The anger drained away, replaced by something deeper and more painful. Grief. She was grieving for 3 years of her life. For the person she had been before she started waiting. For the future she had imagined that would never exist. She sat down on the floor, right there in the middle of her living room, and finally let the tears come. She cried for the wasted time. She cried for her own foolishness, for believing in promises that were so easy to break. She cried for the girl who had waved goodbye 3 years ago, so sure he would come back, so confident in their love. That girl was gone now. The question was, who was left in her place? Hours passed. The tea she had made grew cold. Outside, night fell completely. Lisa sat in the darkness of her apartment, feeling empty and full at the same time. Empty of hope, but full of a strange kind of clarity. Finally, she stood up. Her legs were stiff from sitting on the floor. She walked to her bedroom, opened the drawer where she kept jewelry, and took off the ring. It slipped off easily, leaving a pale mark on her finger where it had sat for years. She placed it in the drawer and closed it. The finality of that small action made her breath catch, but she didn't put it back on. Walking back to the living room, she looked at the apartment with new eyes. This wasn't their place. It had never been their place. He had left, built a new life, and moved on while she stayed frozen in time. This was her place, her home, and it was time to make it look like it. She grabbed the wedding magazines and threw them in the recycling bin. The special coffee went in the trash. She opened the closet and pushed her clothes to fill the empty space he was never going to occupy. It was past midnight when she finally stopped. The apartment looked different, but she felt different too. Lighter somehow, despite the pain. Like she had been carrying a heavy weight and had finally set it down. Her phone buzzed. A text from James. Tommy had fun today. He fell asleep holding the pumpkin seeds. Thank you for coming with us. It meant a lot. To both of us. Lisa stared at the message for a long time. Here was someone who showed up. Who kept his promises. Who said he would be at the library on Thursday and was always there. Whose words matched his actions. She didn't reply immediately. Her emotions were too raw, too confused. But she saved the message like a small light in a very dark room. That night, Lisa lay in bed staring at the ceiling. 3 years of her life were over. Ended with a 15-minute video call. It should have destroyed her. Maybe part of her was destroyed. But another part, a part she didn't know existed, felt something unexpected. Relief. The waiting was over. The uncertainty was gone. The door she had been standing in front of, waiting for it to open, had finally closed. And she could turn around now. She could see what else was out there. She thought about James and Tommy, about laughter at the park and dinosaur books and hot chocolate and simple happiness. About being seen and valued, not for waiting but for being present. Maybe the universe had a plan all along. Maybe she needed to wait 3 years, not for him to come back, but to meet the people who would help her move forward. Maybe every Thursday at the library, every Saturday at the park, every moment with James and Tommy had been preparing her for this, for the moment when she would finally let go and choose to live again. She closed her eyes, and for the first time in 3 years, she didn't fall asleep thinking about the man who left. She fell asleep thinking about a little boy's gap-toothed smile and his father's kind eyes, and the possibility that her story wasn't over. It was just beginning a new chapter. The days after that phone call were strange. Lisa woke up each morning expecting to feel devastated, but instead felt oddly free. The weight she had been carrying for 3 years was gone, and even though there was pain in its place, there was also space. Room to breathe. Room to think. Room to be. She looked at her hand throughout the day, at the pale band of skin where the ring used to be. It was like a ghost, a reminder of what had been there. But ghosts fade with time, she told herself. Everything fades with time. Rita noticed immediately. They were having lunch at their favorite cafe when her friend grabbed Lisa's hand across the table. The ring, Rita said, her eyes wide. It's gone. It's over, Lisa said simply. He called. He's with someone else. He's been with someone else for a while, probably. Rita's expression went through several emotions at once. Anger, relief, sadness, and finally concern. How are you, really? Lisa thought about it. I'm okay. Actually, I think I'm more than okay. I'm free. Free is good, Rita said, squeezing her hand. Free is really good, and it was. Lisa threw herself into rediscovering who she was beyond the woman who waited. She pulled out the watercolor set she had bought years ago but never opened. Every evening she would sit by her window and paint. She wasn't good at it, not yet, but that wasn't the point. The point was the doing, the creating, the way time disappeared when she mixed colors and watched them bloom on paper. She rearranged her entire apartment. The couch moved to face the window instead of the TV. She bought plants, filling the space with green living things that needed care and attention. She hung her own paintings on the walls, replacing the neutral prints she had chosen thinking of someone else's taste. Her closet got a complete reorganization. She donated clothes she had kept because he might have liked them and bought new ones in colors she loved. Bright yellows and deep purples, clothes that made her feel alive instead of waiting. She accepted invitations she had turned down for years. Dinner parties with colleagues from the library, a book club that met every other week, a yoga class that met early on Saturday mornings. She filled her calendar with life, with activities, with people who were actually present. Through all of this, James and Tommy remained constants. But now Lisa approached these meetings differently. She wasn't hiding anymore, wasn't pretending everything was fine. She was genuinely happy to see them, without the guilt of feeling like she was betraying someone by enjoying their company. One Thursday, after story time, James noticed her bare hand as she was resheeling books. He didn't say anything, just gave her a look that said he understood. Later, as Tommy was picking out books to take home, James stood next to her. "The ring," he said quietly. "It's over," Lisa said, and saying it out loud to him felt different than saying it to Rita. More vulnerable somehow. "I'm sorry," James said, and he sounded like he genuinely meant it. "I'm not," Lisa surprised herself by saying. "Not anymore. It hurt at first, but now I just feel like I woke up from a really long dream." James smiled at that. "Dreams can be nice, but living is better." "Exactly," Lisa said, feeling understood in a way she rarely did. The next Saturday, James invited her to join them for something new. "There's a holiday market downtown. Handmade crafts, hot cider, lights everywhere. Tommy's been asking about you all week. Would you want to come?" Lisa didn't hesitate. "I'd love to." The market was magical. Strings of lights hung between the stalls, and the air smelled like cinnamon and pine. Tommy held both their hands as they walked, swinging between them and chattering constantly about everything he saw. They tried samples of homemade fudge, watched glassblowers creating ornaments, and listened to a choir singing carols. Tommy got his face painted to look like a reindeer, and he was so proud he wanted everyone to see it. Lisa found herself laughing more that evening than she had in years. Real laughter that came from her belly, spontaneous and joyful. She caught James watching her at one point, and he had this soft expression on his face that made her heart skip. "What?" she asked, self-conscious. "Nothing," he said, smiling. "You just look happy. Really happy. It's nice to see." They got hot chocolate and found a bench near the skating rink, watching people glide across the ice while Tommy sat between them, contentedly drinking his chocolate and getting marshmallow all over his face. "Miss Lisa," Tommy said suddenly, looking up at her. "Are you my friend?" "Of course I am, sweetheart," Lisa said, wiping marshmallow off his nose. "Not just my friend. My really, really good friend." "Your very best friend," Lisa confirmed. Tommy beamed at that. "Good, Daddy needs more friends too. Sometimes he gets lonely. I hear him at night sometimes and he sounds sad." James looked embarrassed. "Tommy, we don't need to talk about that." But Tommy continued with the brutal honesty of children. "After Mommy went to heaven, Daddy was really sad. But now he smiles more. Because of you, Miss Lisa." Lisa felt tears prick her eyes. She looked at James, who was staring very hard at his hot chocolate. "I smile more because of both of you too," Lisa said softly. They stayed at the market until Tommy could barely keep his eyes open, bundled up in his father's arms. As they walked to the parking lot, Tommy half asleep on James's shoulder, Lisa felt a profound sense of contentment. "This," she thought, "this is what life is supposed to feel like." Over the following weeks, the three of them developed an easy rhythm. Sundays became their day. Sometimes they would go ice skating with James and Lisa each holding one of Tommy's hands as he wobbled across the ice. Sometimes they would visit museums where Tommy would ask a million questions and James would patiently answer every single one. Sometimes they would just hang out at James's apartment, ordering pizza and watching movies. Lisa learned more about James during these times. How he doodled building designs on every available surface when he was thinking. How he sang off-key in the car and didn't care. How he was trying to teach himself to cook better food for Tommy but regularly burned things. How he worried constantly about being a good father, about whether he was enough for his son. "You're more than enough," Lisa told him one evening when Tommy had fallen asleep during a movie. Sprawled across the couch with his mouth open. Look at him. He's happy, he's loved, he's confident. That's all because of you. And you, James said quietly. You've become such an important part of his life. Of both our lives. There was something in the way he said it, something that made Lisa's heart beat faster. But she wasn't ready to examine it too closely yet. She was still healing. Still figuring out who she was without the waiting, without the ring, without the plan she had held onto for so long. But she was getting there. Every painting she finished, every plant that grew new leaves, every laugh she shared with James and Tommy. She was getting closer to the person she was meant to be. Not the person she had been before, because you can't go back. But someone new. Someone better, maybe. Someone who had learned that life happens now in the present, not in some distant future that might never come. One evening, Lisa was in her apartment, looking at the painting she had just finished. It was abstract, swirls of blues and purples with bright splashes of yellow. She didn't know what it was supposed to be, but she knew it made her feel something. Hope, maybe. Or possibility. Her phone buzzed. A picture from James of Tommy holding up a drawing. Look what Tommy made for you, the text said. He wants to give it to you tomorrow. Lisa smiled, zooming in on the picture. It showed 3 stick figures. A tall one, a medium one, and a small one. Above them, Tommy had written in his messy child handwriting, "My family." Lisa stared at that word. Family. Without thinking too hard about what it meant, she saved the picture and replied with a heart emoji. That night, she slept peacefully, without dreams of the past or worries about the future. Just deep, restful sleep. The kind that comes when you're exactly where you're supposed to be, with exactly who you're supposed to be with. The healing wasn't finished. Maybe it would never be completely finished. But she was learning that healing doesn't mean forgetting or erasing what happened. It means making room for new things while acknowledging the old. It means growing around the pain instead of letting the pain stop all growth. And she was growing, like her plants, like her art, like her heart that was slowly opening again to the possibility of love. Not the desperate love of waiting and hoping, but the gentle, steady love of showing up, being present, and choosing joy every single day. Tomorrow would bring more moments with James and Tommy. More laughter, more simple happiness, more of this new life she was building. And for the first time in years, Lisa was excited about tomorrow. Not scared, not waiting, not hoping for something that might never come. Just genuinely, peacefully excited. She was finally living again, and it felt like coming home. December arrived with soft snowfall and the smell of pine trees everywhere. The town looked like a postcard, with lights strung across streets and wreaths on every door. Lisa had never felt more present in her life, more aware of each moment as it happened. She was meeting James and Tommy at their favorite cafe on a Saturday afternoon. It had become their spot, the place where they gathered when it was too cold for the park or too early for the library. The cafe had a children's corner with books and toys, and the owner always gave Tommy a free cookie because he was so polite. Lisa arrived first and ordered hot chocolate for all 3 of them. She was watching snow fall outside the window when she heard Tommy's excited voice. "Miss Lisa." "We're here!" She turned to see Tommy running toward her, his winter coat unzipped and his hat falling off. James followed behind, catching the hat and shaking his head with an amused smile. "Someone was very excited to see you," James said as he helped Tommy out of his coat. "I drew you another picture," Tommy announced, pulling a folded paper from his pocket. It was slightly crumpled, but Lisa opened it carefully. 3 stick figures again, this time with a Christmas tree next to them. "That's us." "We're a team." "We are," Lisa agreed, her heart warming at the simple drawing. "This is beautiful, Tommy. I'm going to put it on my fridge." "Really?" His eyes got wide. "Next to the other ones?" "Right next to them," Lisa promised. They settled at their usual table near the window. Lisa had brought supplies for a gingerbread house kit she had found at the store. She thought it would be fun for Tommy, and watching his face light up when she showed him was worth every penny. "We can build a house?" Tommy asked, amazed. "Out of cookies?" "Out of cookies," Lisa confirmed. "But we have to be very careful and patient." They spread out the pieces, and Lisa showed Tommy how to use the icing like glue to stick the walls together. James helped hold pieces in place while they dried, and Tommy very seriously decorated with candy, placing each piece with intense concentration. "This is harder than I thought," Tommy said, his tongue sticking out as he focused on placing a gumdrop on the roof. "The best things usually are," James said, catching Lisa's eye over Tommy's head. There was something in his expression, something soft and warm that made Lisa's stomach flutter. They worked on the house for almost an hour, laughing when walls fell down and cheering when they finally got the roof to stay. Tommy decorated it with enthusiasm rather than precision, but the final result was perfect in its messy, colorful way. "It's the best house ever," Tommy declared, sitting back to admire their work. As James went to get napkins to clean the icing off their hands, Tommy turned to Lisa with that serious expression he sometimes got when he was thinking about big things. "Miss Lisa," he said carefully, "can I ask you something?" "Of course, sweetheart, anything. Do you have a family?" The question was simple but loaded with meaning from a child's perspective. Lisa thought about how to answer. "Well, I have my mom and dad. They live far away, though, and I have friends like your daddy and you." Tommy nodded, processing this. He was quiet for a moment, then said, "But you live alone? Just you?" "Just me," Lisa confirmed. Tommy's face scrunched up with concern. "Don't you get lonely?" "I get lonely sometimes when Daddy has to work late. Even though I have my goldfish, I still miss having someone there." Lisa felt her throat tighten. "Sometimes I do get lonely, but then I remember I have special people in my life like you and your daddy, and that makes me feel better." Tommy was quiet again, thinking. Then he looked at her with those big, honest eyes that children have before the world teaches them to hide their feelings. "Miss Lisa, I have another question," he said very seriously. "Okay," Lisa said, wondering what was coming. "Daddy told me that Mommy is in heaven now, that she's watching over us and she loves us, but she can't come back." Tommy's voice got softer. "I don't remember her much. I was little. I see pictures and Daddy tells me stories, but I don't really remember." Lisa reached over and took his small hand. "That's okay, Tommy, you were very young. Daddy says Mommy would want us to be happy, that she would want us to have love in our lives." Tommy looked up at Lisa with such hope and innocence. "Miss Lisa, Daddy needs someone here too. Not just in heaven, someone who can have dinner with us and help fix my boo-boos and come to my school things." Lisa's heart started beating faster. Tommy. But he wasn't done. He looked at her with complete sincerity and asked, "Will you marry my father instead?" The question hung in the air like the snow falling outside, soft and surprising and transformative. Lisa felt like time had stopped. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. That was the exact moment James returned with the napkins. He froze mid-step, his eyes going wide as he realized what he had just heard. "Tommy," James's face turned red. "You can't just ask people that." But Tommy looked confused. "Why not? You said we should be honest about our feelings. You said we should tell people when they're important to us. Miss Lisa is important to us." James looked mortified, setting down the napkins and running his hand through his hair. "Yes, but, there's a way to..." He looked at Lisa with panic and apology in his eyes. "I am so sorry. We talked about feelings last week and he must have. I didn't tell him to. This is not how..." Lisa found her voice, though it shook a little. "James, it's okay." "It's not okay," James said, sinking into his chair and looking like he wanted the floor to swallow him. "Tommy, buddy, you can't ask people to marry someone out of nowhere. That's not how it works, but why not?" Tommy looked genuinely confused. "You like Miss Lisa, I know you do. You smile different when she's here. And Miss Lisa likes you too, I can tell. And we're happy when we're all together. Isn't that what families are? People who are happy together?" Out of the mouths of children, Lisa thought, came the most inconvenient truths. James was struggling to find words, his face red, his hands fidgeting with the napkins. "Tommy, it's more complicated than that. Miss Lisa might not feel that way. She might just want to be our friend, and that's perfectly fine. We can't just assume. But I do feel that way." Lisa heard herself say, and suddenly both James and Tommy were staring at her. "You do?" they said at the same time, and Lisa almost laughed at how similar they sounded. Lisa took a breath, her heart pounding. "I'm not saying yes to getting married right this second, Tommy. That's something that takes time and talking and a lot of thinking. But I do care about you both very much, more than I realized until you just asked that question." Tommy beamed like the sun. "See, Daddy? I told you!" James looked like he couldn't quite believe what was happening. "Lisa, you don't have to say anything just because Tommy put you on the spot. He's 6. He doesn't understand the complexity of— James, Lisa interrupted gently. When was the last time you let yourself feel something without overthinking it? He stared at her, and she could see about a dozen emotions crossing his face. Surprise, hope, fear, longing. I'm scared, he admitted quietly. I lost someone I loved. Starting over, letting someone in again. What if something happens? What if I mess it up? What if you don't? Lisa countered. What if this is exactly what we're all supposed to find? Tommy, who had been watching this exchange like a tennis match, suddenly grabbed both their hands and put them together on the table. See, this is good. This feels right. And looking at their hands together, Lisa couldn't argue with a 6-year-old's wisdom. It did feel right. Scary and unexpected and too fast and too slow all at once, but right. I think, James said slowly, looking at Lisa with eyes that finally showed what he had been hiding. We need to talk, just the two of us, about everything. I think so too, Lisa agreed, her hand still in his. But I helped, right? Tommy asked hopefully. I'm a good helper? James laughed, finally relaxing a little. You're the best helper, buddy. Also the most embarrassing child in the entire world. But the best. I learned from watching you, Tommy said innocently, making both adults laugh. They finished their hot chocolate, the gingerbread house sitting between them like a sweet, crooked symbol of what they were building together. Not perfect, a little messy, but made with care and patience and maybe love. As they packed up to leave, Tommy held Lisa's hand and looked up at her. So you'll think about it? About being part of our family for real? Lisa squeezed his hand. I'll think about it very seriously, I promise. Good, Tommy said, satisfied. Because you're already family in my heart. You just don't live with us yet. Walking to the parking lot through the gentle snow, Lisa felt like she was in a dream. But unlike the dream she had been living in for 3 years, this one was real. The cold air on her face was real. Tommy's hand in hers was real. James walking beside her, sneaking glances when he thought she wasn't looking, that was real too. Sometimes life asks you questions you're not ready to answer. And sometimes a 6-year-old boy asks the question you didn't know you were waiting for. The question that changes everything. The question that makes you realize you've already been living the answer. One Thursday story time, one scraped knee, one gingerbread house at a time. Lisa didn't know what would happen next. But for the first time in years, she was excited to find out. After Tommy's unexpected question at the cafe, the air between Lisa and James changed. Not in a bad way, but in a way that felt charged with possibility and nervousness. They texted more carefully, both aware that something had shifted, but neither quite sure how to address it. 3 days later, James asked if they could meet at the library after closing. Lisa's colleague gave her a knowing look when she asked to stay late but didn't say anything. Just smiled and left Lisa alone with her racing thoughts. James arrived exactly at 6 after closing time. The library was quiet and dim with only a few lights on. He looked nervous, holding 2 cups of coffee from the shop down the street. Peace offering, he said, handing her one, in case this conversation goes badly. Why would it go badly? Lisa asked, accepting the coffee and gesturing for him to follow her to the reading area near the windows. They sat in the comfortable chairs usually occupied by people reading newspapers. Outside, streetlights were coming on, and a few early stars were visible in the darkening sky. For a moment, neither spoke. They both sipped their coffee, gathering courage. Finally, James set his cup down and turned to face her fully. I need to apologize again for Tommy. That was— Don't, Lisa interrupted gently. Don't apologize for your son being honest about his feelings. The world needs more of that, not less. James smiled slightly. He got that from his mother. She always said exactly what she thought. No filters, no games. It's one of the things I loved most about her. This was the first time James had really talked about his wife directly to Lisa. She stayed quiet, letting him continue. When she died, I thought that was it for me. I had Tommy, and that was all I could handle. All I deserved, maybe. He looked down at his hands. I didn't think I could love someone again. Didn't think I wanted to. It felt like betraying her memory somehow. That's understandable, Lisa said softly. But then you came along, James continued, looking up at her now, with your kindness and your patience with my son. And slowly, without me even noticing, you became this presence in our lives that I didn't want to lose. I started looking forward to Thursdays. Started finding excuses to run into you. He paused, Started feeling things I thought I'd never feel again. Lisa's heart was pounding so hard she was sure he could hear it. James, let me finish, he said quickly. Because if I don't say this now, I might lose my nerve. I saw your ring. I knew you were waiting for someone. And I told myself that was fine, that we could just be friends. That what I was feeling was just gratitude or loneliness or something that wasn't real. But it is real, Lisa said, finishing his thought. It is real, James confirmed. And when Tommy asked you that question, part of me was mortified. But another part was relieved. Because he said what I've been too scared to say. We want you in our lives. Not just as a friend. As family. Lisa felt tears forming but blinked them back. I need to tell you about the ring. About why I was wearing it. You don't have to. Yes, I do. Lisa took a breath. I was engaged. Or I thought I was. He left 3 years ago for work overseas. Promised he'd come back. I waited. Everyone told me to move on, but I waited. I thought loyalty meant standing still. I thought love meant putting my life on hold. James listened without interrupting, his expression gentle and understanding. Then he called a few weeks ago, Lisa continued. Told me he'd met someone else. That he'd built a new life. That I should move on. 3 years. Ended in 15 minutes. She laughed bitterly. I felt like such a fool. For waiting. For believing. For wasting so much time. It wasn't wasted, James said firmly. It brought you here. To this moment. That's what I've been trying to tell myself, Lisa admitted. And honestly, meeting you and Tommy has taught me more about love than those 3 years of waiting ever did. Real love shows up. It doesn't make you wait. It doesn't make promises it can't keep. It's there present every single Thursday. Every Saturday. Every random Tuesday when a little boy needs a Band-Aid. James reached over and took her hand. The gesture was simple but felt monumental. I'm terrified, he admitted, of getting this wrong, of losing someone again, of Tommy getting attached and then losing another person he loves. He's already attached, Lisa pointed out. So am I. We're past the point of protecting ourselves from getting hurt. I know, James said. But what if I'm not ready? What if it's too soon? It's only been 2 years since she died. There's no timeline for grief, Lisa said. No rule book that says when you're allowed to feel happy again. Your wife would want you to be happy. You said so yourself. She would, James agreed, his voice thick with emotion. She told me, actually, at the hospital before. He stopped, composing himself. She made me promise not to stay alone forever. Said Tommy needed more than just a sad dad. That I deserved to find love again. She sounds like she was an amazing woman, Lisa said honestly. She was. And I'll always love her. That doesn't go away. James looked at Lisa intently. But I'm learning that the heart has room for more than one person. That loving someone new doesn't erase loving someone who's gone. It's just different. They sat in silence for a moment, both processing the weight of what they were saying. So where does that leave us? Lisa finally asked. James smiled, really smiled for the first time that evening. I don't know exactly, but I know I want to find out. No pressure. No rushing, just seeing where this goes. Together. Together, Lisa repeated, liking the sound of that word. Tommy's going to be impossible when we tell him, James said, laughing a little. We're not telling him anything specific yet, Lisa said firmly. We're going to figure this out first. Take it slow. Make sure we're doing this for the right reasons. Agreed, James said. Though I should warn you, subtle is not Tommy's strong suit. He's going to know something's changed. Then we tell him the truth, Lisa said. That we care about each other. That we're going to spend more time together and see what happens. That nothing's guaranteed, but we're willing to try. James squeezed her hand. I like that. Honest and real. No fairy tale promises. Real is better than fairy tales anyway, Lisa said. Fairy tales don't include scraped knees and burnt dinners and the actual work of showing up every day. You've met my cooking, James joked. Are you sure you're ready for that? Lisa laughed. I'll teach you. Consider it my contribution to your household. The conversation flowed easier after that. They talked about their fears and hopes. About what they wanted from life. About how to navigate this carefully, especially with Tommy's feelings involved. About the memory of his wife and how to honor that while moving forward. Hours passed without them noticing. The library grew darker around them, but neither wanted to leave the bubble they had created in this quiet space. I should probably go, James finally said reluctantly, looking at his watch. "Tommy's with the neighbor and I told her I'd be back by 9. They stood up and suddenly the air felt different again. Awkward in a sweet way, like teenagers after a first date. "So," James said, standing close enough that Lisa could see the gold flecks in his eyes. Would it be okay if I?" He gestured vaguely, clearly trying to ask permission for something but not sure how. Lisa smiled at his nervousness. "Yes, James, you can hug me goodbye." He laughed, relieved, and pulled her into a warm embrace. It was the first time they'd hugged properly, and it felt like coming home. Lisa breathed in the scent of his cologne mixed with coffee, felt the steadiness of his heartbeat, and thought that this, right here, was what she had been missing while she waited for someone else. They pulled apart slowly, both a little reluctant to let go. "Thursday?" James asked. "Story time?" "Thursday," Lisa confirmed. "And maybe Sunday? The three of us?" "Sunday sounds perfect," James said, his smile reaching his eyes in a way that made Lisa's stomach flutter. She walked him to the door, watched him walk to his car, saw him turn back once to wave before driving away. Then she locked up the library, her coffee forgotten and cold, her heart full and light. On the drive home, Lisa thought about how strange life was. You could spend years waiting for one thing, only to discover that what you really needed was something completely different, something better, something real. She had waited for someone who made promises he couldn't keep, and while she waited, she had almost missed the man who kept every promise, even the small ones, who showed up when he said he would, who let his son ask impossible questions because honesty mattered more than comfort. That night, Lisa fell asleep smiling, not because everything was perfect or certain, but because for the first time in years, she was excited about not knowing what came next. She was excited to find out one day at a time with two people who had somehow become the most important parts of her life. The conversation wasn't over. There would be more talks, more navigation of feelings, more figuring things out. But they had started. They had been honest. And that, Lisa thought as sleep claimed her, was more than enough for now. Tomorrow would bring Thursday and story time, and Tommy's excitement and James's shy smiles. It would bring new chapters of a story she hadn't planned to write but was grateful to be living. And this time, she wasn't waiting for life to start. She was living it. Right now. Right here, with all its messy, beautiful, uncertain, real possibilities. 6 months passed like a beautiful, messy, real story unfolding one page at a time. Lisa and James didn't rush. They took things slowly, carefully, with Tommy's heart always at the center of their decisions. They had official dates, just the two of them, while Tommy stayed with James's neighbor or Lisa's friend Rita. They went to quiet restaurants where they talked for hours, learning about each other beyond the park meetings and library visits. They discovered shared loves of old movies and terrible jokes, disagreements about whether breakfast or dinner was the best meal, and a comfortable silence that felt just as good as conversation. They had family time too, the three of them. More zoo visits where Tommy insisted on seeing every animal twice. Museum trips where he asked questions that stumped even the tour guides. Simple weekends at home where Lisa taught James to cook properly, and Tommy helped by stealing ingredients and making messes. Tommy adapted to the change with the easy flexibility of children. He started calling her My Lisa instead of Miss Lisa, possessive and proud. When his class had to draw their families, he included her without hesitation, and when his teacher asked about it, he explained matter-of-factly, "That's my Lisa, she's family." There were hard moments too. Nights when James would look at photos of his late wife and cry, and Lisa would hold him, understanding that grief didn't disappear just because new love appeared. Times when Tommy would ask about his mother and Lisa would step back, giving father and son space for those sacred memories. There were moments when Lisa's own past crept back in, when doubt would whisper that maybe she was moving too fast, settling again, making another mistake. But then she would remember the difference. This wasn't waiting. This wasn't putting life on hold. This was living fully and presently with someone who showed up every single day. Around month 5, James asked her officially to be his girlfriend, with Tommy presenting her a ring made of twisted pipe cleaners as a promise ring for dating. Lisa wore it proudly to work, and when it fell apart, she kept the pieces in a small box on her dresser. They talked about the future in concrete terms now, where this was heading, what they both wanted. Lisa moved some clothes to James's place. She had her own drawer, a toothbrush in the bathroom, plants on the windowsill. small markers of permanence. And then one spring evening, James asked her to dinner at a nice restaurant. He told her to dress up, that it was a special occasion. Lisa assumed it was their 6-month anniversary, but when she arrived, she found Tommy there too, wearing a tiny suit that made him look adorably grown up. "What's all this?" she asked, suspicious and delighted. "You'll see," James said mysteriously. But his hand shook slightly as he pulled out her chair. Dinner was wonderful. Tommy was on his best behavior, using his napkin and eating with his fork properly. They talked and laughed, and Lisa felt that familiar warmth of being exactly where she belonged. After dessert, James got a strange look on his face. He glanced at Tommy, who nodded encouragingly. "Lisa," James started, and his voice was shaking now. "6 months ago you asked me when was the last time I let myself feel something without overthinking it. I've been thinking about that question ever since." Lisa's heart started pounding. "James, wait," he said, smiling. "This time I get to finish before you interrupt." Tommy giggled, and Lisa noticed he was practically bouncing in his seat with excitement. James continued, reaching across the table to take her hands. "I've spent 6 months thinking, planning, trying to find the perfect time and the perfect words. But here's what I realized. There is no perfect time. There's just now, and right now in this moment I know exactly what I want." He stood up, and before Lisa could process what was happening, he was on one knee beside her chair. Tommy scrambled out of his seat to stand next to his father, holding a small velvet box. "Lisa," James said, his eyes shining with tears, "you came into our lives when we needed you most, when I didn't even know I needed anyone. You've shown me that hearts can heal while still honoring the past. That love doesn't replace love, it adds to it. You've given Tommy joy and stability and a mother figure who's there, present every single day." Tommy opened the box, revealing a simple, beautiful ring. "Not flashy or huge, but perfect. Will you marry us?" James asked. "Not just me, us. Will you be Tommy's mom? Will you be my wife? Will you let us be your family?" The restaurant had gone quiet. Other diners were watching, some with phones out capturing the moment. But Lisa barely noticed them. All she could see was James on one knee, Tommy holding that ring box like it contained the most precious thing in the world, and both of them looking at her with such hope and love. "Yes," she said, and her voice broke. "Yes, of course, yes." The restaurant erupted in applause. James slipped the ring on her finger with shaking hands, and then he was pulling her up, hugging her, kissing her, while Tommy cheered and jumped around them. "I helped pick the ring," Tommy announced to anyone who would listen, "and I kept it a secret for 2 whole weeks." Lisa knelt down to Tommy's level. "You did such a good job, sweetheart, and I want you to know I'm saying yes to both of you, to being a family together." Tommy threw his arms around her neck. "Can I call you Mom now? Or is that weird?" Lisa's tears flowed freely. "You can call me whatever feels right to you." "Mom it is," Tommy decided. "My Lisa Mom." People kept congratulating them. The restaurant owner sent over champagne for James and Lisa, and sparkling juice for Tommy in a fancy glass. They took photos, made calls to family and friends, and Tommy told the story of how he had kept the secret to anyone who would listen. Rita, when she heard, laughed and cried at the same time. "I knew it. The moment you told me about that scraped knee, I knew." Lisa's mother cried too, happy tears this time. "I'm so glad you stopped waiting and started living, sweetheart." The wedding was planned for a garden venue 2 months later. Small and intimate, just close family and friends. Lisa insisted on keeping it simple and meaningful, rather than the huge celebration she had once planned for a wedding that never happened. Tommy had been involved in every decision. He picked the flowers because Mom needs purple ones, those are her favorite. He helped James write his vows. He had strong opinions about the cake flavors. The morning of the wedding, Lisa woke up in Rita's apartment where she had stayed the night before. Her dress hung on the closet door, simple and elegant. Her mother was there helping with makeup, and Rita was attempting to style her hair. "No cold feet?" Rita asked, catching Lisa's eye in the mirror. "Not even a little bit," Lisa said honestly. "For the first time in my life, I'm completely sure." "That's because you're not waiting anymore," her mother said wisely. "You're choosing." That's the difference. At the venue, friends were setting up chairs in neat rows facing an arch covered in flowers. The sun was shining, birds were singing, and everything felt like it was exactly as it should be. Lisa arrived in a simple car, not a limo. She wore comfortable shoes because she knew there would be dancing. She carried a small bouquet of purple flowers that Tommy had insisted on. The music started and she walked down the aisle alone. Not because she didn't have someone to walk her down, but because she was choosing this, walking toward it on her own 2 feet, eyes wide open, heart fully present. James stood at the altar in a simple suit, and next to him was Tommy, holding 2 rings on a small pillow with such concentration you'd think he was carrying the crown jewels. As Lisa reached them, James had tears in his eyes. Tommy was grinning so wide his face looked like it might split in half. The ceremony was short and sweet. They had written their own vows, and when it was James's turn to speak, his voice was steady and sure. "Lisa, I promise to show up. Every day. Every Thursday, every Saturday, every random Tuesday. I promise to be present, to be here, to choose you again and again. I promise to honor your journey that led you to us, and to never make you wait for love again." Lisa's turn came, and she looked at both James and Tommy as she spoke. "James, I promise to choose this moment right now over and over. To stop waiting for someday and live in today. Tommy, I promise to be here for you, to read you dinosaur books, to fix your scraped knees, and to love you as my own son." Tommy couldn't contain himself anymore.
Can I do my part now?
The officiant smiled. "Go ahead, Tommy." Tommy stepped forward very seriously. "I, Tommy, promise to share my toys sometimes, to eat my vegetables most of the time, and to love both of you always." Laughter rippled through the small crowd. James and Lisa were both crying and laughing at the same time. "By the power vested in me," the officiant said with a smile, "I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss your bride." James kissed Lisa sweetly, and Tommy made a face and said, "You," loud enough for everyone to hear, which made the guests laugh even harder. "And now," the officiant added with a wink, "I present to you for the first time the new family." They walked back down the aisle together, all 3 of them, Tommy between his parents, holding both their hands and skipping with pure joy. The reception was filled with dancing and laughter. Tommy gave a speech that mostly consisted of him listing all his favorite memories with Lisa, including the time she let me eat 3 cookies at the library, which made Lisa blush because technically kids were only supposed to have one. Rita gave a toast that made everyone cry.